this.
Some prayers are with these families. We will see you next time.
The following program contains sexual content. Viewer discretion advised. Today on an all-new Dr. Phil.
I never had guilt or second thoughts after my first time with Amanda. She was 12 years old.
A father's unspeakable cry.
I just wanted to be loved. I wanted them to love me. I wanted them. He groomed you.
So did you. Let her talk. You haven't seen your father since you were 13.
Now,
Jim, come on in.
she'll face the man who violated her for years.
You feel like you've done nothing wrong.
20 years ago, these kind of things were joked about.
Are you kidding me? Molesting your daughter was wink, yuck, yuck? That is complete and utter bull. Yesterday, we met Amanda, who bared her soul about the years of sexual abuse she suffered at the hands of her mother, Justine, and her father, Jim. Amanda came face to face with Justine, who spent 15 years in jail for her crimes, yet continued to play the victim on stage. Take a look at what happened.
My parents forced me to have sex with them when I was 11 years old to 13. Jim would have Justine and I both have sex with them, both on and off of camera. Justine encouraged me to enjoy sex. If I wasn't enjoying it, the camera could tell.
Your mother videotaped this. She was right there. What was going through your head at that point?
Fear, mainly. This was not the way that fathers love their daughters.
Did this come out of the blue?
No, it was more of a grooming. Justine was a part of their prostitution company. Justine would show me how good sex could feel by having sex with my father in front of me. She took me into the bathroom to teach me how to French kiss. In order to do that, she kissed me.
Teaching you how to French kiss your biological father.
Yes.
Jim found out how much money could be made from child pornography. Jim would talk about how it would be better if she learned about sex from someone who truly loves her. I fought for about 3 months and then finally did give in.
What convoluted parallel universe does a mother get behind a video camera and watch her daughter performing a sex act on her husband and her father?
Jim and Justine would threaten that if I talked about any of this to anyone, I would never see the house or my dogs ever again. I hated them, I loathed them. It's been 20 years since that nightmare ended, but it's still hard to grasp the idea that they are out of prison. Every time I see Justine, she just incites in me this rage. The pain that I have to endure every single time I see your face is unbearable to me. Do you know where I wanted to go? As far away from you as I could get.
Alcohol was involved.
Yes.
What went through your head when you said, okay, here, let me pour her a drink and hand her this so she can get raped by her father?
What went through my head is he'll take her away from us.
You told me you enjoyed it.
I enjoyed the power of it.
He was over there raping your daughter and you're videotaping it.
I was killed inside. My innocence was stolen from me. You were supposed to be my mother.
What do you feel when you look at her?
Just hatred, pure and simple.
Jim admits he was the mastermind behind the sexual abuse of his daughter, but says he was never sexually attracted to Amanda, and he felt like they were just, quote, playing a role. He says sex with his daughter was mechanical, and after the first time, he felt no guilt.
I admit that I was sexually active with my daughter during her teenage years. When Amanda was about 11, I realized the money-making potentials. I started grooming her the day she was born. I used my relationship with her as her father My wife and I were already involved in the porn industry. We had been making amateur porn movies with each other since the mid-'80s. I encountered some pictures of teenage girls having sex. I showed it to Justine and Amanda, and that began the discussion. Amanda showed an interest. I mistook her childlike curiosity for a genuine interest. Once we started taking photographs of her naked and in seductive poses and continued finding photographs of children her age doing more explicit things, the conversation turned to her becoming involved in that as well. During that period, she was about 12 years old. If Justine is saying that I forced her to participate in sex with Amanda, that's not only did she go along with it, but she participated. I never had guilt or second thoughts after my first time with Amanda, or any of those times. I didn't see her as my daughter. I saw her as a person playing a role. I did not get every time I saw my daughter. I'm much more interested in the mechanics than the physical act. And I felt I wasn't causing any harm. I thought the sentence was harsh and incredulous. 20 years was a bit much. Being a sex offender in prison is not fun. Exploited, taken advantage of, beaten up. During the early 90s, things like sexually abusing children were things that people winked and joked about. There used to be a popular comic strip called Chester the Molester. We felt that it was harmless. It was me. It wasn't strangers. Neither Justin or I ever saw an issue with it.
Amanda, you haven't seen your father face to face since you were 13 years old. I have a real disdain for putting abusers in the proximity of their victims unless the victim wants that to happen because they feel like it will be cathartic for them. They feel like it's something they need to do, and they have the ego strength to do that. Otherwise, I would not do that. And you have expressed to us and now to me directly, you feel a need
Yes.
to face him and say the things you want to say, ask the questions you want to ask.
Yes.
So it's with your blessing and permission that I bring him out here to join us.
Yes, please.
Okay, Jim, come on out. Jim, right here, if you would, please.
Where to begin? How could you? After years of dreaming of this day, of meeting you again, truthfully, I would have preferred if you were 6 foot under. I've heard excuses, I've heard no true apologies, and I've heard that you feel like you've done nothing wrong. Can you look at me now and really think that?
Absolutely not. I would never say that to you now. But it's taken me years of therapy and deep spiritual thought to come to be able to even sit here with you today and try to answer your questions. I have a lot of reasons, a lot of excuses, a lot of rationalizations that I use and used to do what I did to you. I'll tell you as much as I possibly can, if that's
You just
what
said
helps.
on the videotape that you didn't think that you did that much harm.
That's correct. During that time
How
period,
could you think that?
because
How could you think that?
as I talked
Justine,
about,
please.
at that particular time period, we're talking about 20 years ago and more. These kind of things were laughed about, joked about, winked about.
That is absolute,
With who?
complete, and utter.
Yes, sir. I know you can.
Seriously? Seriously? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
What I'm trying to
20 years ago, we're talking the year 2000. We're talking
No, sir, we're
1996.
talking- yeah,
You're
we're
telling
talking-
me that molesting your daughter, raping your child was wink, nod, nod, yuck, yuck in 1996?
If you didn't think you had done that much damage, if you
I'm
didn't-
sorry.
if you
I'm
didn't
sorry,
think
guys.
that
I'm sorry.
that it was that wrong, if you thought it was joked about, why did you have me quiet?
What I'm trying to say is that I did not understand the harm I was causing you. I did not understand. I personally did not know the damage I was doing to you. I didn't appreciate it. I didn't understand it.
No, you said it was
And-
better for her to learn from
Exactly.
someone who loves her.
Yes. That's exactly how I perceived it at the time.
5 suicide attempts. Is that much damage? That's what you did to me. 5 suicide attempts since you were convicted. Is that much damage?
Yes.
I felt like I had asked for it.
He groomed you.
Shut up.
And so did you. Let her talk. And later, to suggest parents didn't know that it wasn't okay to rape their children is insulting your intelligence. He's just thumbing his nose at you.
Bring home a spellcasting adventure with the Harry Potter Magicaster wand.
Stupefy!
Connect your smart devices, cast spells, and witness the magic come to life. Lights,
Lumos Maximum.
sounds,
Media loading.
and your TV.
Expecto Patronum. Cool.
The Harry Potter Magicaster wand. Order now.
Next on Love and Marriage Huntsville.
I think I saw an interview, and they asked Mel how she doing with Martell's new boo thing. Oh, she felt probably happier when he was leveling down. But the level up is kind of a gut punch.
Hey, Martell?
Hey, what up? Hey, don't keep me outside all this damn
Yeah,
heat.
it's outside today.
You gonna invite me to that house? Don't play with me like that.
Love and Marriage Huntsville. New episode, Saturday at 8/7 Central.
Guys, what are we always saying this campus needs?
A decent place to get my eyebrows tinted?
No.
A strip show?
It's a sex-positive striptacular. It's also a fundraiser for climate change.
Y'all been naughty and nice.
Don't listen outside our door, it's creepy.
Excuse us for being messy bitches who love drama.
I done had to pass it back quick. I got an attitude cause I'm at that.
There is nothing hotter than real, honest to goodness love.
Mama wanna tell you where it's at. I wanna get that.
I was made for this.
Get with it or get lost.
You dropped the ball big time.
I'm throwing y'all my very own Miami yacht party.
It just shook up all of the dynamics.
Y'all ready for this?
Jim and Justine would videotape me mainly in any type of sexual act. They would take pictures of me in lingerie, naked, things of that sort. Jim told me that with the money that we could make, I could go to college and just do whatever I wanted. He would say sexual things to try to turn me on, even bribery. I never saw any of the money. I would like to let him know how his true victims really feel.
He said, and I quote, "I would say I abused her 4 or 5 times."
Live.
Okay. Through what span? And what exactly would you deem as abuse? Keeping control, keeping your thumb on somebody, making sure you picked and chose who they dated, who they were friends with, forcing them into, grooming them for prostitution and for sexually explicit videos that were to be sold nationwide, worldwide, excuse me. Was that not abuse? My face plastered on some kind of sex doll somewhere? Was that supposed to be endearing?
No.
No.
The question I had been asked was about the physical acts, and those were the times that I could recall. And I also said that I was ashamed that I couldn't remember, as well as you, how many times it had been. That it should have been burned into my memory as much as it was yours.
You were ashamed because you couldn't remember?
How many there were.
That's the only thing you were ashamed of?
That was one of many things I'm ashamed of.
Good.
Hundreds of things.
I carried this guilt. I still do, and I always will. Whenever I look at my daughters, I felt like I had done something to give you the impression that I asked for it.
He groomed you. He groomed you.
Shut up.
And so did you. Let her talk.
He groomed me. That's fine.
And so did you.
Yeah,
Let her talk.
But I admit it.
Let her speak.
I don't say there was anything right about it. I hate you. I hate what you did to us. You came back from Lebanon and all of a sudden everything had to be sexual. Everything. You made me play poker and perform sex acts on other people just for your pleasure. Just to keep you happy. Then,
it wasn't just for his happiness either. You
You
never expressed that you were completely dissatisfied with what you were doing. You made it sound glamorous. You made it sound fun. You
No.
tried to coach me
No. He kept
to
telling me I
how.
had to smile and make it better for you, so you'd be happier about it.
So that makes him worse than you.
No, it doesn't. But it doesn't make any of it right.
No.
Does it? It's
There's all kinds of pressure, Amanda. Whatever her
threatens,
threshold was,
he
if I
grooms.
pressed her to that point and she felt pressured, then it's pressure. If it's different for her, then it's different for others, then so be it. That's how it is.
It's different for everyone because everyone
Exactly.
is different.
If she felt pressured to do those things, then because of me, then that's the way it was. It's different for everyone.
Well, I'm hoping that the other different girls out there will at least take some example from this.
God, I hope so too.
Maybe they might maybe the abusers might have some idea as to the backlash that could come.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. Next, on December 16th, 1996, police didn't think this was funny. They weren't winking and nodding. They weren't joking about Chester the molester. They broke down their door and they arrested Jim and Justine, and they rescued Amanda from her parents' depravity. But Amanda says her nightmare was just beginning. She says she began drinking, abusing drugs, sleeping with multiple men, and even created an alter ego named Nicole to escape from the horrors of her past. We'll talk about the wreckage, the havoc that was left in the wake of these despicable acts after the break.
I created another personality. Her name was Nicole. Whenever Nicole would take over, it was like blacking out.
And later, so when you look at this picture, this is just an object of business opportunity.
She was considerably older when I started thinking along
Well, we
those
don't have
lines.
any of those pictures because they were all confiscated.
Bring home a spellcasting adventure with the Harry Potter Magicaster wand.
Stupefy!
Connect your smart devices, cast spells, and witness the magic come to life. Lights,
Lumos Maximum.
sounds,
Media loading.
and your TV.
Expecto Patronum. Cool.
The Harry Potter Magicaster wand. Order now.
Guys, Guys, what are we always saying this campus needs?
A decent place to get my eyebrows tinted?
No. A strip show?
It's a sex-positive strip-tacular.
It's also a fundraiser for climate change.
Y'all been naughty and nice.
Don't listen outside our door, it's creepy.
Excuse us for being messy bitches who love drama.
I done had to pass it back quick. I got an attitude cause I'm at that.
Next on Love and Marriage Huntsville.
I think I saw an interview, and they asked Mel how she doing with Martell's new boo thing. Oh, she felt probably happier when he was leveling down. But the level up is kind of a gut punch.
Hey, Martell?
Hey, what up? And don't keep me outside all this damn
Yeah,
heat.
it's outside today.
You gonna invite me to that house? Don't play with me like that.
Love and Marriage Huntsville. New episode Saturday at 8/7 Central.
There is nothing hotter than real, honest to goodness love.
Mama wanna tell you where it's at. I wanna get that.
I was made for this.
Get with it or get lost.
You dropped the ball big time.
I'm throwing y'all my very own Miami yacht party.
It just shook up all of the dynamics.
Y'all ready for this?
I'm taking you down bit by bit. I can't wait to see you try.
It's only just begun.
Being sexually abused as a child has affected every aspect of my life. It's brought a lot of hardship. I've been engaged to be married 13 times, and I've been common law married 4 times. I was actually quite an alcoholic from the age of 16 to 32 years old. I drank to be numb. It just got harder and harder to keep smiling about it and hide behind the lies that nothing had happened.
Amanda says after her parents were sentenced to 20 years for sexually assaulting and exploiting her, her life spiraled out of control. She says she was a runaway, started having sex with random men, became an exotic dancer, began abusing alcohol and drugs, and created an alter ego named Nicole, whom she says protected her.
I actually became a topless dancer. I created another personality. Her name was Nicole. Nicole was there to protect me from having to take responsibility for the things that I did. Nicole was quite the aggressor. She was the one that wasn't afraid to say things that I normally wouldn't say or do. Whenever Nicole would take over, it was like blacking out. I really wouldn't remember what happened. When I was Nicole, I would often have multiple partners a night. I would confess my entire story to just absolute strangers. A night after having multiple sexual partners, I slit my wrists. The last time Nicole came out was about 3 years ago. Essentially, Nicole was kind of like the big sister that would step into my body from the way it would feel sometimes. She would help me get through things that I didn't want to. Dancing, drugs, alcohol. But like I said, it was a way for me to stay numb, not have to feel. Because every time I did, I just wanted to die. I heard that you had said that prison was hard for you.
Yes. Nothing compared to what you went through.
Oh, he said a lot of things, actually. I made a list of them because I thought some of them were interesting to you. He said, we don't know the damage, including her in our sex acts, would have on her. I pled genuine ignorance. I did not think I would harm her emotionally. Is that really true? Did you really not know this would harm her emotionally?
I really did not know.
You really didn't.
Did you not
wasn't
know, or did you
something-
not care?
No, Amanda, honestly, I didn't know. This wasn't, again, we're going back 20 some odd years. This didn't have the high profile attention that it has now, or even any attention at all. I didn't bother to educate myself on what potentially I was doing to you. I was thinking of my own self-interest. I didn't want to learn anything that might
Hinder that
slow me down.
money-making
By the
prospect.
way, he keeps saying that, and you were only 11 at the time, but let me tell you that I've been in this profession for 45 years, and what he's saying is absolutely, unequivocally untrue. The level of awareness of incest, rape, sexual molestation, all of those things in 1996 was very prominent, very high, to suggest that he was in an environment where parents didn't know that it wasn't okay to rape their children is insulting your intelligence, it's insulting your experience, it is a complete insult to this entire experience between him and you. Now, he's either that naive or he's just thumbing his nose at you, because that is an idiotic statement.
I don't think that at any time or any place in the world it was ever actually acceptable to rape your daughter.
I was arrogant. I thought I knew better than they did. I thought I could do it in such a way that it wouldn't be abusive, or I told myself all sorts of things. I used my relationship as her father to get what I wanted.
What exactly did you want?
What was it that you wanted so badly that you were willing to destroy her life? Closed captioning provided by...
Bring home a spellcasting adventure with the Harry Potter Magicaster wand.
Stupefy!
Connect your smart devices, cast spells, and witness the magic come to life. Lights,
Lumos Maximum.
sounds,
Media loading.
and your TV.
Expecto Patronum. Cool.
The Harry Potter Magicaster wand. Order now.
Guys, what are we always saying this campus needs?
A decent place to get my eyebrows tinted?
No. A strip show?
It's a sex-positive striptacular.
It's also a fundraiser for climate change.
Y'all been naughty and nice.
Don't listen outside our door, it's creepy.
Excuse us for being messy bitches who love drama.
I done had to pass it back quick. I got an attitude cause I'm at that.
What do you see when you see yourself? A sidekick? A liability? A monster? A pale imitation? I see more. Master Bruce saw more. He saw the future of Gotham.
Rated T for teen.
Next on Love and Marriage Huntsville.
I think I saw an interview, and they asked Mel how she doing with Martell's new boo thing. Oh. She felt probably happier when he was leveling down. But the level up is kind of a gut punch.
Hey, Martell?
Hey, what up? And don't keep me outside all this damn
Yeah,
heat.
it's outside today.
You gonna invite me to that house? Don't play with me like that.
Love and Marriage Huntsville. New episode Saturday at 8/7 Central.
There is nothing hotter than real, honest to goodness love.
Mama wanna tell you where it's at. I wanna get that.
I was made for this.
Get with it or get lost.
You dropped the ball big time.
I'm throwing y'all my very own Miami yacht party.
It just shook up all of the dynamics.
Y'all ready for this?
Why me, huh?
Why not you?
listen to the thunder.
No matter what part of my story you come in at, I'm always chasing the music. Nobody was trying to find a fat black girl that rapped and sang and played the flute. If I'm on that stage, we're connecting to something higher. The show must go on.
He said, I never had any guilt or second thoughts after my first time with Amanda. I didn't say I'm never doing this again. I didn't see Amanda as sexually arousing, if that makes sense. I never had an attraction to younger women. Abusing Amanda was an opportunity, and I had a skill set.
I'm glad it was such a great
but
opportunity.
That's how it was. I'm more interested in the mechanics, not the act. I didn't see her as my daughter, as just playing a role.
Was that one of the medieval roles that you had put into my head? Was that one of the ideas that you were grooming me for my husband?
It was what I told you, it was what I told myself, that this wasn't happening between father and daughter, this was happening between two actors.
Between two actors?
Yes.
Wow.
So you told her one thing, told yourself another, and then told me a third.
Of course.
And yeah.
That's what we do.
I'm the stupid one.
That's what I do.
I am. I am.
Say that again.
You still sit there thinking that there was nothing we did wrong.
No, that's
Everything
not what I said.
was wrong. Everything. You started grooming her for about, 6 months, a year
You
before
said you started
came
grooming
to
her
me?
at birth, correct?
I said that I used, technically that was correct because I used my relationship as her father and her protector against her to groom her. And since I had done that since the day she was born, that I had begun grooming her from that day.
Started grooming you at birth.
Wow.
That's what he said.
It's quite a commitment. So
That's not,
definitely
that's not
gives
saying
new
that
meaning to
I
baby
started out the
farming.
day you were born thinking this was the future I had planned for you. That's not what I meant. What I meant was I exploited my relationship with you to get what I wanted
Why?
because I wanted what I wanted.
What exactly did you want? You didn't want me, so you said. What exactly did you want?
I wanted the money that would come from it.
Buy yourself a new family?
No.
Yes.
That probably would have turned
No.
out a little bit better.
Yeah. There's absolutely.
Okay, stop talking. Answer her question. What did you want? What was it that you wanted so badly that you were willing to destroy her life?
I can't honestly say that I was seeing myself as destroying your life. I honestly did not believe that I was.
Well, let's get past that. What exactly did you want?
This became just another challenge to me. And for that, if no other reason, I objectified you. I didn't see you as my daughter anymore, just another obstacle.
Essentially, I was chattel to you.
I had learned to separate myself into compartments. I could see you as my daughter one minute and an object the next.
Congratulations. You made me do the same thing to myself.
I got what I wanted. I used my position as your father to get what I wanted.
So when you look at this picture of this precious child here, this is just an object, a business opportunity.
She was considerably older when I started thinking along
Well, we
those
don't
lines.
have any of those pictures because they were all confiscated. She jumps from really young to later teen years because everything in between was confiscated.
There were a lot of pictures that weren't pornographic as well.
Yeah. We don't have them. Jim says he doesn't consider himself a pedophile. We'll talk about that after the break. It's been 20 years. What is it that you need to say to him or ask him? Closed captioning provided by...
Guys, what are we always saying this campus needs? A decent place to get my eyebrows tinted? No. A strip show? It's a sex positive striptacular. It's also a fundraiser for climate change.
Y'all been naughty and nice.
Don't listen outside our door, it's creepy.
Excuse us for being messy bitches who love drama.
I done had to pass it back quick. I got an attitude cause I'm at that.
There is nothing hotter than real, honest to goodness love.
Mama wanna tell you where it's at. I wanna get that.
I was made for this.
Get with it or get lost.
You dropped the ball big time.
I'm throwing y'all my very own Miami yacht party.
It just shook up all of the dynamics.
Y'all ready for this?
Next on Love and Marriage Huntsville.
I think I saw an interview, and they asked Mel how she doing with Martell's new boo thing. Oh, she felt probably happier when he was leveling down. But the level up is kind of a gut punch.
Hey, Martell?
Hey, what up? And don't keep me outside all this damn
Yeah,
heat.
it's outside today.
You gonna invite me to that house? Don't play with me like that.
Love and Marriage Huntsville. New episode Saturday at 8/7 Central.
Bring home a spellcasting adventure with the Harry Potter Magicaster wand.
Stupefy!
Connect your smart devices, cast spells, and witness the magic come to life. Lights,
Lumos Maxima.
sounds,
Media loading.
and your TV.
Expecto Patronum. Cool.
The Harry Potter Magicaster wand. Order now.
I'm taking you down bit by bit. I can't wait to see you try. It's only just begun.
Had I known about some of the things that were going on before Jim got me involved, I would have stopped it.
Anybody who's known Justine for more than 5 minutes knows that no one talks her into anything she didn't want to do.
If I could turn back the clock, I'd be in prison to this day for murder. Murder of Jim.
Justine says her hands were tied when Jim suggested they should start having sex with their daughter. She says she feared for her and Amanda's lives, so she became subservient to him. Jim says, no, no, no. Justine was no innocent bystander, and there was no need to threaten her because she was there every step of the way. She was a willing participant. She was involved from the jump.
You had been grooming her for months, if not years, before you came and even tried talking to me. I kept telling you no, no, no.
And that's just an excuse as well.
You're probably
Not
right.
necessarily.
I am right.
We wrote letters while we were in prison, and he wrote me one, and he said, "You act like I had to drag you kicking and screaming into doing something you like." I said, "No, you always dragged me kicking and screaming into doing something that you liked."
It's been 20 years. And I want to save some time to speak to you about you. What is it that you need to say to him or you need to ask him?
After you were arrested, I heard several things from both sides of the story, stating that you called me a liar, said that these things never happened the way I said them. Many of the time it was just when the families saw the videos did they actually believe me. Why? Why would you say something like that?
Until I finally got some treatment that I understand the harm and damage, that at least have some understanding. I'm not living your life. I haven't been through what you've been through. I've just been given more information, given the chance to think about what I did to you. I do remember people telling me that she's absolutely been ruined by this. You victimized her for life. You've ruined her life. And at that time, I thought, wow, they're overstating. I don't think I did that much harm to her.
What do you think now? Am I scarred for life?
I've known it for a long time.
You said that you were, you had a hard time in prison?
Yes. Nothing compared to what you went through. I didn't try to categorize it that way. People ask me what it was like, and I tell them.
The other thing I have to ask you, are these just words? You're a master manipulator. You're very charming to very many people. You're one of those that can feign emotion rather well. Are these just words? Do you have any type of sincere apology in you?
I hurt you in ways that most abusers don't. I took away your trust. I took away your right to have a parent and a guardian and a protector and a guide.
Two.
I stole all those
You took
things.
away two.
I took away both of them. There's no way to say I'm sorry for that. There's nothing close that comes to that. I mean, if I thought it was possible, I would sit and write tomes about it. It's just not possible. I am sorry. I'm sorry in depths you can't even know about. But there's no way to elucidate that to you. I am sorry, Amanda.
This has been what I've wanted all along, not just for me, but for other girls out there, hopefully to take away from this, that they can have the courage to stand up for themselves too.
Okay. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, I'm going to spend some time talking with Amanda about where she goes from here. I'm going to ask these two to excuse us, so I'll just be with Amanda when we come back. So we'll be right back. Thank you both.
You've always had my back when I needed you. I know you'll keep Gotham safe.
Let's finish what Bruce started.
Let's play.
Nothing can stop what's coming.
Rated T for teen.
My ultimate goal, Chinese food world domination.
Don't change it too much.
I'm not waiting. It's happening now.
Series premiere, Chef Dynasty House of Fang. December 27th at 9 on Food Network.
Bring home a spellcasting adventure with the Harry Potter Magicaster wand.
Stupefy!
Connect your smart devices, cast spells, and witness the magic come to life. Lights,
Lumos Maximum.
sounds,
Media loading.
and your TV.
Expecto Patronum. Cool.
The Harry Potter Magicaster wand. Order now.
Guys, what are we always saying this campus needs? A decent place to get my eyebrows tinted? No. A strip show? It's a sex positive striptacular. It's also a fundraiser for climate change.
Y'all been naughty or nice?
Don't listen outside our door, it's creepy.
Excuse us for being messy bitches who love drama.
I done had to pass it back quick. I got an attitude cause I'm at that.
No matter what part of my story you come in at, I'm always chasing the music. Nobody was trying to find a fat black girl that rapped and sang and played the flute. If I'm on that stage, we're connecting to something higher. The show must go on.
There is nothing hotter than real, honest to goodness love.
Mama wanna tell you where it's at. I wanna get that.
I was made for this.
Get with it or get lost.
You dropped the ball big time.
I'm throwing y'all my very own Miami yacht party.
It just shook up all of the dynamics.
Y'all ready for this?
Next on Love and Marriage Huntsville.
I think I saw an interview, and they asked Mel how she doing with Martell's new boo thing. Oh, she felt probably happier when he was leveling down. But the level up is kind of a gut punch.
Hey, Martell?
Hey, what up? And don't keep me outside all this damn
Yeah,
heat.
it's outside today.
You gonna invite me to that house? Don't play with me like that.
Love and Marriage Huntsville. New episode Saturday at 8/7 Central.
Amanda, I hope that this served the purpose that you wanted it to serve. People that are emotionally broken, people that are emotionally barren, people that are emotionally crippled can't give away what they don't have. Some of the things that Jim had to say about, oh, this was a time when this was all kind of laughed about, and excuse my language at the time, do not let anything that he says trivialize, minimize, or in any way cheapen the gravity of what has happened to you. What was done to you is unspeakable. It is unimaginable. You've heard me say a lot of things since I got here. You've not heard me say, I know how you feel. And you haven't heard me say that because I know what I don't know. I'm going to tell you what I do know. What I do know is that you had absolutely no responsibility for what happened when you were a child. And I know you know that at some level.
At some level.
But I want you to really hear me when I say this. Because if there's that little voice in there that says, sometimes I remember back that I maybe enjoyed the attention, or maybe sometimes I actually used that power to get things I wanted. And so you're thinking to yourself, I know everybody thinks this was a horrible rape of me, but what they don't know is how horrible I am, that there were parts of it I didn't hate every minute of every second, and therefore they're feeling compassion for a dark and ugly person. Understand, I do know that. That's part of the distortion that goes through with the hedonism of being seduced as a child. So don't judge yourself.
That's a big part of the shame and the guilt. I just wanted to be loved. I wanted them to love me. I wanted them to be happy with me.
But if in those dark moments you say, I was a little whore at heart, that's when you start judging yourself and putting yourself down. Isn't that what you say? And as a result, you label yourself and then you live to the label. Closed captioning provided by...
I'm taking you down bit by bit. I can't wait to see you try.
It's only just begun.
What do you see when you see yourself? A sidekick? A liability? A monster? A pale imitation? I see more. Master Bruce saw more. He saw the future of Gotham.
Rated T for teen.
Bring home a spellcasting adventure with the Harry Potter Magicaster wand.
Stupefy!
Connect your smart devices, cast spells, and witness the magic come to life. Lights,
Lumos Maximum.
sounds,
Media loading.
and your TV.
Expecto Patronum. Cool.
The Harry Potter Magicaster wand. Order now.
Guys, what are we always saying this campus needs? A decent place to get my eyebrows tinted? No. A strip show? It's a sex-positive strip-tacular. It's also a fundraiser for climate change.
Y'all been naughty or nice?
Don't listen outside our door, it's creepy.
Excuse us for being messy bitches who love drama.
I done had to pass it back quick. I got an attitude cause I'm at that.
No matter what part of my story you come in at, I'm always chasing the music. Nobody was trying to find a fat black girl that rapped and sang and played the flute. If I'm on that stage, we're connecting to something higher. The show must go on.
There is nothing hotter than real, honest to goodness love.
Mama wanna tell you where it's at. I wanna get that.
I was made for this.
Get with it or get lost.
You dropped the ball big time.
I'm throwing y'all my very own Miami yacht party.
It just shook up all of the dynamics.
Y'all ready for this?
Next on Love and Marriage Huntsville.
I think I saw an interview, and they asked Mel how she doing with Martell's new boo thing. Oh, she felt probably happier when he was leveling down. But the level up is kind of a gut punch.
Hey, Martell?
Hey, what up? And don't keep me outside all this damn
Yeah,
heat.
it's outside today.
You gonna invite me to that house? Don't play with me like that.
Love and Marriage Huntsville. New episode Saturday at 8/7 Central.
Do I look like I'm judging you? Do these people look like they're judging you? Look at them. Actually look at them. If you think she should give herself a second chance, stand up for her right now. Look at her in the room. I said you weren't responsible even 0.1% for what happened to you then. You are 100% responsible for what you do about it now. And I'm going to bring you the best of the best. I'm going to get you the best of the best. And that's our gift to you. And the first thing I want to do is I want to start out by calling a timeout, and I want to arrange for you to go see my good friend, Miles Adcox, and his folks at Onsite. They're out in Nashville. They're on a ranch in Nashville. And it's a beautiful, beautiful place in the country. And they do very intensive workshops, therapeutic workshops for people that have been through trauma. And they have some of the best people in the world that deal with people that have been through the kind of trauma that you've been through to help you hit the reset button and get your values right so your children have 100% of their mama. Okay, we're going to start there, and then we're going to get you the kind of support that you need week to week to week so that you climb out of this. And there'll come a time when you can forgive these people and leave that to God. But there's a future ahead for you where you have joy in your heart and your children get all of their mother. Let's make today the changing day in your life. Fair enough?
Fair. Very fair.
Okay. I want to thank all of my guests today, and a special thanks to Miles Adcox and the people at Onsite. If you or someone you know is being abused, please contact RAIN, Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network at 1-800-656-HOPE, RAIN.org. We'll have a link for that on drphil.com as well. For more information about today's show, log on to drphil.com. You can also join the conversation today on Facebook and Twitter. So long.
Today on an all-new Dr. Phil, a woman he's never seen.
You met on a dating site, and she's attractive.
She's attractive. For the last 6 years, I've been trying to help Kelly get these steel boxes shipped to the United States.
2 boxes he's never examined.
Box 1 has $3.5 million. Box 2, there's diamonds and jewelry.
Mark believes he's going to come into millions of dollars with a beautiful woman.
I've spent over $750,000 getting these boxes.
Is there a possibility that this is a scam?
I don't think you know the whole story yet.
I'm trying to understand the story.
I'm trying to explain it to you. You're getting it mixed up.
You keep telling me different stories. Let's do it.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
This is a safe place to talk about hard things.
Stand by. We'll count you down.
I'm trying to be an emotional compass and point you in the right direction.
5, 4.
I am not giving up on you. Well, today we're talking to Mark, who is both a respected doctor and father, who joined an online dating site after his divorce where he met an attractive blonde named Kelly Smith, who he described as incredibly honest, decent, and kind. 3 days into talking, Mark says Kelly told him that her father passed away and left her $3.5 million in cash and $3 million in jewelry and diamonds. She supposedly put everything into 2 metal boxes and agreed to give Mark 50% of her inheritance if he would help her get the boxes from Nigeria to the U.S. Sound too good to be true? Well, Mark thought so. In fact, he immediately thought it was a scam until he talked to the mystery woman, Kelly, and she reassured him that it was real. So Mark says he paid $22,000 to have the ownership of the boxes changed to his name and started the process of having the boxes shipped to the United States. Now, Mark says he sold his house, took the money from his clinic and stopped paying his taxes so he could send hundreds of thousands of dollars to Nigeria, Dubai, and Malaysia to cover customs fees in order to get the boxes into the United States. 6 years have passed. The boxes have still not arrived. But that has not stopped Mark from trying to help Kelly. Take a look.
I met Kelly on Match.com. She seemed really nice. She told me she was from Canada and she now lives in Nigeria. Her father left her deed to property in Nigeria worth about $3.5 million and goods worth $2 or $3 million. She told me she had the money and goods put in 2 steel boxes. For the last 6 years, I've been trying to help Kelly get these steel boxes shipped from Nigeria to the United States. Kelly wants to come to the United States and live here, but she has more control of what's going on by staying there until the boxes get here. I decided to help her because she needs the help, and she also made me a partner. Since it's taken so long, we've decided to split the boxes 50-50. I've spent over $750,000 getting these boxes shipped to this country. I've been working with a professional shipper that Kelly hired named Adiola. We're afraid if the boxes are opened by customs somewhere around the world, they will be stolen or confiscated. I'm paying a lot of money for special documents and stickers to prevent it from happening. The most stressful part of this is more than 6 or 7 times Mr. Adiola has told me that with X amount of dollars, we're gonna get this done. And it seems like when it's paid, then something else comes up. If everything that Kelly's telling me is true, I'm saving her life.
Okay, well, first, you met on a dating site, right?
Yes.
And she's attractive.
She's attractive.
Let's take a look at her profile. She's a Canadian. She used to be named Linda Johnson, but she had an abusive ex-husband and that threatened to kill her, right?
Yes.
So as a result, she had to change her name.
And he took everything that she had.
Took it all.
Everything.
So she changed her name and she moved to Nigeria to get away from him.
No, she found the deed to this property and a key or a note for the safety deposit box that her father left her in Nigeria.
Oh, I see.
So she went to Nigeria for that.
Okay, and her father passed away and left her 2 boxes in Nigeria.
She put everything into the 2 boxes. She went to Nigeria, sold the property back to the Nigerian government, and went to the safe deposit box that her father left her and got apparently a lot of jewelry and other expensive items. And
Wait a minute, she sold the property to the government?
Yes.
Why did the government want to buy the property?
It was great property. Her father was an investor actually in oil. And he bought this property and never died before he did anything with it, from what I understand. I may not be able to answer every detail, but that's what I understand.
But the government bought the property?
Yes, the government bought the property from her.
Well, I didn't know governments did that, but okay. So, and where did the things come from? Because box 1 has $3.5 million U.S. currency in it, right?
Yes.
And where did that money come from?
That was from the sale of the property.
So the Nigerian government paid her in U.S. currency?
Yes.
Reckon why they did that?
You'd have to ask them.
Well,
I don't know.
Why do you think so she's in Nigeria.
I think because
selling Nigerian property to Nigerian government, and they say, do you take U.S. cash?
I'm not going to explain how or why. I'm just telling you the story.
Okay. So they bought this property back from her, and they just happened to have some U.S. currency on hand, so they paid her in U.S. currency.
I wouldn't be surprised if a government has U.S. currency
Right.
on hand because
I mean,
it's
she's
so-
Canadian.
She's Canadian. Originally, she lived in Texas. She
So
lived in the United Kingdom.
They didn't pay her in Canadian money. They paid her in U.S. money. They're Nigerian. She's Canadian, but they paid her in U.S. currency. Okay, box 2, there's $3 million in diamonds and jewelry.
I don't know the exact numbers. It's approximate. And he left her some diamonds and jewelry. Yes.
Okay, but she didn't get that from the Nigerian government.
No, that was
from
the
him.
safety deposit box.
Okay, but you've got to get that back here, or it's no good to you over there.
Or her.
Or her. So you hired a shipper.
She did.
She did, named Mr. Adiola.
Right.
And he's trying to get the boxes to the U.S.
She paid him to get these boxes shipped.
Okay.
To me.
I got
a lot of questions.
I got 2 words for you. FedEx.
Yeah. I don't think so. I mean, but Dr. Phil, I can't. You need to speak with her and Adiola about asking questions about how to ship.
I would love to.
I know you would. I've spoken to him many, many times, as a matter of fact.
Why not FedEx?
I don't think that it works that way. They'd have to still go through customs. They'd have to still open the boxes and get it.
Your problem is you don't want these boxes opened.
She doesn't either. That's the main thing.
But why not?
I think the understanding is if they get opened somewhere around the world, wherever they stop, and they see what's in there, it's going to be confiscated or stolen or, just never make it to where it's supposed to go.
Okay. Why not go to the bank in Nigeria and get a cashier's check or just wire the money?
I have found over the last 6 years that wiring money around the world, and especially to Nigeria, is very difficult. But